Good morning, everybody. I'm Ed Aves. I'm the publisher of El Restaurante magazine, and I want to welcome you today to our webinar on how to double your wine sales. Before I introduce our presenter, I'd like to mention just a couple quick things. One, questions are, of course, welcome. Please use your questions tab to ask questions, and you can ask them at any time during the presentation, and we will answer them at that point or at the end, whichever seems appropriate. Si quieres escribir tus preguntas en español, no hay problema. Los traduciré para nuestra presentadora. The second thing I'd like to mention is that this event is being recorded. So you can watch it later or you can share it with your colleagues who couldn't be here today. So by all means, look out for an email about that. And lastly, I'd like to mention that our presenter, Tammy Lanasa, will be leading two other wine webinars for us with slightly different content on July 12th and September 13th. So put those dates on your calendar and look out for promotions about those coming up. And now I'd like to welcome our presenter, Tammy Lanasa. Tammy has held leadership roles in all three facets of the wine industry supply chain. However, she has always been involved on the restaurant side of the business. She began her career working for a wholesale distributor and received many awards for her outstanding sales, including Salesperson of the Year multiple times. Then in 2008, she became a corporate beverage director, managing over $100 million in beverage sales for the upscale steakhouse chain Del Frisco's. And now, for the last 10 years, she has served as the on-premise National Accounts Director at Fetzer Vineyards, Vina Concha y Toro, responsible for maintaining and growing all restaurant and hotel chain business within the US. She is also a first-level certified sommelier. Last but not least, she is a frequent public speaker as well as an experienced wine educator. And I want to add to that last point, I looked at Tammy's presentation and wow, it has really got some great info in it. So get ready to learn. So with that, Tammy, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for giving me your time today to talk about wine sales. Super excited to be a part of this with El Restaurante webinar series. So I'm going to start by my company, Fetzer Vineyards Vina Concha y Toro, is sponsoring this event as well, or partnering with El Restaurante. So I just want to tell you a little bit about my company on one slide before we go into the presentation. And my little clicker is not working. I had technical difficulties. Let's see. Here we go. So Fetzer Vineyards Vina Concha y Toro USA, this is who we are. Our company began in 1968. The Fetzer family founded the company with what's good for the grape, or good for the earth is good for the grape. And we've really never varied from that ethos. So we've always been about sustainability way before it was talked about. And now we've moved into what we call regenerative development. So we're not just sustaining the environment, we're really restoring it, revitalizing, refreshing it, renewing it everywhere we go. So sustainability is a huge part of our portfolio, and every wine in our portfolio is sustainable. We have wines from three different origins. So we have Chile, Argentina, and California. And within those, we have about 30,000 acres planted to grapes. We own many more vineyards that are not planted to grapes because of biodiversity and sustainability. So this is who we are as a company. Here's what we're going to talk about today, though. This is why we're here. So today's agenda is I'm going to talk to you about creating a working wine list within your restaurant, how to create a working wine list, and then how to engage your staff to sell wine and the best ways to promote wine. So that's what we're going to discuss today. And if we have time, I'll go over some of our brands so you can learn about those as well. So in creating a working wine list, the first thing you want to do is reevaluate your current offerings. So to do that, you need to ask yourself some questions like, are you selling wine currently? Are you just selling house wine? Are you selling other wines? How many wines by the glass are you selling? And most importantly, are you actually selling wine or are you buying wine and storing wine? Do you have it priced right? Ask yourself if you have it priced right, and we'll talk about a guideline for that. Does your wine taste good? A lot of times when you have wine by the glass and you've had it there for a long time, in a lot of Mexican and South American Latin cuisine restaurants, wine is not the focus. Of course, margaritas, cocktails, even beer has more emphasis. So we forget sometimes, does our wine actually taste good? Would you drink a second glass of your wine? Ask yourself these questions. And do you have wine for your staff to upsell? So if you've got a house red and white, you would say, well, I'm selling wine. But to wine drinkers, you're really not. You need to offer something besides a house red and white. And you also need to offer a second tier for your servers to be able to upsell and talk to them about wine. Again, can your staff speak to and sell your wine? These are the questions you need to ask yourself before creating a working wine list. If you look at the list to the left or to the right that I created, excuse me, and I called it Casa Lanasa, which is my last name. But basically, what I want you to notice is that the house wine or the first tier wine is at the bottom of the list and not at the top. And a lot of times, I think on menus, we make the mistake of listing the least expensive item at the top. So it's the first thing our guests see, and the most expensive item at the bottom. And pretty much we know from marketing research that they stop at the top and don't go down. So you want to list the upsell opportunities at the top of the list and your house wine or first tier offerings at the bottom of the list. When also you're creating a wine list, the main thing you want to talk about is or work on is keeping it simple. So you don't want to make it too complicated. Look, if you are not a wine centric restaurant with a vast wine list and a wine cellar, and you're not a steakhouse, you want to keep it simple for your staff and for your guests, but you want to have it appealing as well. So you want to limit the number of wines you offer, but like I said before, offering more than two. So 5 or 6 is a great number. 6 is a perfect number, actually. But when you get more than that, you're talking about a lot of waste. As far as keeping it simple here, what you need to focus on is featuring the top varietals. So since wine has become popular in the US and around the world, Chardonnay has always been queen, as we call it in the business, and Cab has always been king. So you want to have those two varietals for sure. And then in addition, the fastest growing varietal right now in the US is Sauvignon Blanc, and actually many places around the world as well. And there's a real shortage of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc right now. So Sauvignon Blanc is great in South American brands as far as widely available and also very affordable. And then Malbec is a grape that first came from France, but is also planted. The largest producer of Malbec is in Argentina, and it's a grape that is or a varietal that is different from Cabernet. It has different notes, and it has more tobacco and just a different set of taste profile. So it appeals to people that like a red blend or like a more interesting wine, and it pairs great with your cuisine. You want to list the names of the wine by the name of the vineyard or winery, the appellation or where it comes from. So like Chile, California, Argentina. And then you want to list the cost of the wine on the list. A lot of people make the mistake of on their table tents or on their menus, listing a wine and just saying house red, house white, and that doesn't sell anything. similar to how it wouldn't sell if you said house beer, house margarita. You don't see that a lot, but for some reason you see house wine. And so think about listing, even if it's a house wine, list the actual name of the wine and where it's from. And also we found through marketing research that listing the price on the list makes a big difference. You would think, well, I don't want to print my menus over again, so I don't want to list the price. But we've found that people will not order as frequently if they don't know the price. Then you want to price each by the glass at the price you paid for the bottle or slightly more. So for instance, our Frontera Chardonnay and Cabernet that you see at the first tier there's a national average of actually $4 a bottle. So it's very reasonable to restaurants. So, but $4 is a very, very low price to charge for a wine by the glass. Maybe for happy hour, you could feature it for $4 and then you've paid for the bottle. But if you price it at $6, that's reasonable, but it's also, you're making huge margin. So every time you price your by the glass, make sure it's either what you paid for the bottle or slightly more. So every time you open a bottle, you've paid for that bottle, and everything beyond that is just profit. Now, if you want to add higher end wines, or if I were you, if you wanted to have a higher end wine, which is a great idea if you're selling wine or if you have servers that are very interested in selling wine. I think that's a great idea, but consider purchasing a Coravin. And a Coravin is a piece of equipment that you can get between $200 and $300. It's easily fits on a back bar, and basically it inserts a small needle into the cork of a high-end bottle, but it doesn't allow any oxygen to escape. So you can keep a very high-end bottle of wine, $20+ a bottle, that you could offer to guests, and you won't have any waste. So it lasts for a long, long time in Coravin, for weeks actually. So I think if that's an option, you definitely should consider that. And then pairing your wines with signature menu items is a great idea. And it gives guests, another place on the menu to see your wines as well. So also in creating a working wine list, you want to make it appealing to wine drinkers. And we talked about the fact that just saying house red and house white really doesn't appeal to them. So wine drinkers expect to see more than just that red and white wine listed. So you also want to keep your wines by the glass tasting fresh. If people drink, like I'm a regular wine drinker and I've also been in the business for a long time, but when I go into a restaurant and I see wines by the glass, my first thought is, ooh, I hope they're fresh, especially in a restaurant that is maybe not known for wine. And there's a couple of ways that you can make sure your wine is fresh. The first thing you can do is have your staff date on the back when they opened the bottle of wine. So if you've opened a bottle of wine and you've just put a cork in it, it's going to last for a couple of days, 3 days max, with that cork in it on the back bar. In the refrigerator, a white wine, about the same. So, keep in mind that after 3 days, you probably need to, it's probably not tasting its best. When it starts tasting vinegary or just not fresh, it's definitely, you could say, well, people serve that all the time. And they do, by the way. A lot of people drink bad wine all the time. But I can promise you this, they don't order a second glass of bad wine. They'll drink it, but they're not going to keep drinking it. So you want them to keep it. So you can also very reasonably and inexpensively buy these little vacuum pumps that go on the top in place of the corks, and just have your staff remove some of that oxygen with a pump at the end of the night. Or there's something called a wine preservative spray, and it's also reasonably priced, about $10 a can. That'll last you a long, long time. And you just put a couple squirts at the end of the night in your wines, and you'll be surprised they'll last a week. So one thing you can do is you can either offer only screw cap wines for simplicity for your staff. Either do this or make sure your servers are comfortable opening a bottle of wine at the table. And if you're not selling wine, constantly, it's something that they're not really, and if you're not selling wine, it's not your top selling. If I had a restaurant, I would serve only screw cap wines for simplicity, or I would have my staff, I would have the distributor bring some, ask them for some, we call schlocky cases, or cases that have been, seen too much heat, that they're going to throw out anyway, and ask them to bring by some of those cases so your staff can just practice on them. And that's all they need to do. You can put the cork in and out, take it off, take it in, and that's something they should be able to do. We've all been at a table where we've seen a server struggling to open a bottle of wine, and it's distracting, and doesn't make you, excited to drink more. You also want to train your staff to offer wine to guests. So, if you're selling, if margaritas, you sell all day, you haven't sold a lot of wine, all you need to do in order to double your wine sales, literally, is just put some priority to it. So have your staff start thinking about offering a glass of wine. Maybe they can start off and say, would you like a margarita or a glass of wine today? We also know that suggestion at the table is huge. So if a server says, would you like our top shelf margarita or a glass of Frontier Chardonnay today? They're already suggesting more by the brand, and it's even more persuasive and enticing to a guest. And you want to be able to train your staff to quickly offer a taste. And when I say a taste, I'm talking about an ounce, just a little something of the wine by the glass if needed to make a decision. A lot of people were like, I'm not familiar with that wine. Well, would you like a taste? Give them that option so that they can help sell your wine. So in engaging your staff to sell wine, there are many ways to do that, but servers have to taste in order to sell, pretty much always, unless they're not of age to taste. So you want to try to taste wine the same day and time once a week if you can, but it needs to be a priority. It starts from the top down, from the owner, from the general manager. If selling wine is important to you, then it's important to your staff. So talk to them about it. Have servers taking turns talking about the wines to their peers. Now, look, you only have 5 or 6 wines on your list, or you only have 4. You think, well, we don't need to talk about wine every week. That's not true. You need to be able to talk about the wines on your list and taste them once a week with maybe a signature margarita or something like this. What we do know is that when you engage your staff to sell more of anything, wine, margaritas, or beer, it will elevate all of your beverage sales. So treat everything with respect as far as talking about it at pre-shift. So also each server, if say you have 4 wines, which would be like the minimum of what I think you should have your first tier or house red and white, but list them by brand and varietal and appellation, and then your upscale tier. So make sure each server has chosen their go-to red or white wine that they feel most comfortable offering. Whatever they gravitate to, whatever they like, that's what they're going to sell. So make sure they have something at their fingertips that they can describe with wine words. And wine words are like fruit forward and good structure and, not too overly oaked. Things, the way that they can describe them, there's simple ways that they can do that. Have your top selling server. Every restaurant has a top selling server that just knows how to describe things to their table. So have that server show your other servers how he or she sells wine to the table, or margaritas, or beer, or anything. Have them talk to their staff. And if they're too young to taste, help them just understand wine descriptions by taste that they recognize. So for instance, Chardonnay usually has a lot of apples and vanilla. These are tastes that they're familiar with, so things that they can understand. Sauvignon Blancs are usually crisp and clean and have some tart sort of grapefruit flavors. And these are things they can understand, where red wines have dark, rich berries and plums and currants, and just help them understand what those tastes are, and help them understand that wine complements food. So what's interesting is, people are not coming to your restaurants because they're hungry. They're coming to your restaurants to have an experience. they're coming to your restaurants because they don't want to hassle with it at home. So help them by serving something that complements their food, so their experience is even better. So the second thing you want to do is have your servers take ownership of the wine. You want them to, again, have taking turns of wine upkeep. Have them take turns of doing the inventory, ordering, and get their help with ordering, dating the back of the opened wine and pumping to keep it fresh, etc. When choosing new wines for your list, ask your top seller servants to taste with you and give you input. This is something you can do. So the more I found in the restaurant business that I was in for many years, the more invested the servers, especially your long-term servers that have been with you for a long time, are in the operation and just your mission as a restaurant, the more likely they are to sell and do more. So get them invested in all your decisions if you can, or many of them. Let them know exactly how many glasses of wine or bottles of wine they need to sell that day to beat last year's numbers. So, in the restaurant that I was very invested in and working with, we were always looking at numbers, and our investors really needed to know. In a smaller restaurant, maybe you don't look at this, how many glasses of wine you sold last year versus this, or how many, margaritas you sold last year. But wouldn't it be fun at the back of the house, you say, okay, last year we sold 12 glasses of wine on this day last year. Let's shoot for 15. Give them something to shoot for. Give them the proper wine keys or wine openers and training in order to open a bottle. And here's where your distributors really need to be put to work. So distributors that are our customers, actually, because I'm a supplier, I work directly for the winery. We give them wine openers and corkscrews, wine keys. They're all the same thing. And we give them tools to pass on to you. So, and we give them all the information they need in order to train. So if you're not putting your distributor to work, I'm sure you are selling tequila and you've got the spirit reps in your restaurant helping you. But put the wine people to work, even if you're not selling a lot of wine or having a lot of wine featured. They will definitely come in and help you. And then ask the servers to create more ways for you to sell in your restaurant. Feature ideas, menu pairings, create and offering wine cocktails, which is a great way to offer. You can do sangria, but there's also all types of wine cocktails that are very interesting, and also help you. If you're already open to wine by the glass, then you're already got it on the back bar, and it's just a great way for you to have more sales from that. But use your young servers. Here's the deal. Most of the servers that are serving in your restaurant have more social media knowledge than a lot of us, a lot of the older people. I don't know how old you guys are on this webinar, but I know that I know a lot about social media, but the younger people in my company and my daughters who are millennials definitely have such a savvy, expertise in this field. So allow them to give you ideas and ways that you can promote your restaurant through their social media expertise. And then last but not least, incentivize and recognize. So good selling servers, they're naturally competitive with each other. So give them reasons they want to win. Again, you can get with your distributor to get incentives or prizes, or just being recognized sometimes is a big deal. So you can keep a poster in the back of the house and put their names on it proudly, and server of the week, server of the month, server of the day, whatever makes sense for you. Regularly recognizing top servers is a huge deal. Keep track of your daily beverage sales from each server, and like I said, post it back at the house for everyone to see. So again, these are the natural selling servers want to see their results, and they will respond to this. Make it fun for them. you know, showing you could put a back of the house poster to show how much more they'll make in tips if they sell a higher end wine versus a low end wine. You can do this with margaritas as well, and show them if you sell a house margarita, this is your tip. If you sell a top shelf margarita, this is your tip, and show them. And visuals are very helpful to servers. And then one thing you can do with the wine, just an idea, is you can offer to pay for a professional wine certification for your top selling wine server of the year. So whatever they decide to do in their career while they're working for you, it's always something, no matter what career they go into, it's always something of value to have a certification as far as wine educating or in wine and service. So this is going to be between probably $200 to $400. So as far as cost to you, but it would be something that they could have on their resume forever. And some of them might really see tremendous value in this and be excited. So the best ways to promote wine that I've found is first the 30 to 60-day menu features. So you pick one wine that every server offers with a special menu feature during this feature period. And it doesn't have to be on the menu. So maybe, for instance, Trevento Malbec. Maybe that's not on your list, the reserve Malbec. But for the next 30 days, you taste it with your servers, you learn about the wine, and then every guest that comes in, you let them know what your special is today, or what you're featuring today. And then you also talk to them about the wine that is featured, and just having them suggest. The power of suggestion, of having something that's not on the menu that's a special, is a huge is usually a huge win with guests. We know based on marketing research that 80% of guests don't know what they're going to order when it comes to beverage when they step into your restaurant. So 80% of guests are persuaded by what that server says or doesn't say. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in a restaurant and had the server basically not suggest anything. Would you like something to drink? That's not suggestive. Are you hungry today? Again, not suggestive. But when you talk to me about the wine that you're featuring, and we've got a wine that we're featuring, and it comes from Argentina. Would you like a taste of it? I really think you'll enjoy it. It goes great with our cuisine. And we also are known for our puffy tacos, and it goes great with our puffy tacos. So can I get you started with something? Then train your staff to sell this wine, and you can lean on your distributor and suppliers like myself for all the resources you need as far as information. Remember, stories sell wine. Stories sell a lot of things in a restaurant, but stories definitely sell wine. So where it comes from, and just talking about it is very important. And then you could have your chef or cook prepare a couple of menu items to taste with this featured wine at pre-shift, and show the servers how well it complements with your cuisine. So maybe if they can see, together, again, this is a visual. This is what wine-centric restaurants do. And so if you want to sell wine, these are ways you can do that. But you want to create some fun guest experience. So here's a couple of ideas. You could host a pre-dinner 5 to 7, and I say wine and empanada tasting, but it could be wine and taco tasting. It could be wine and, enchilada tasting. It could be wine and different nacho tasting. It could be anything, chalupas, it could be anything, but empanadas, I've never met an empanada that I didn't like. And they're small, and people don't make them at home. So they're very special, and you could serve this with South American wines. I have had a lot of success inviting guests in for a pre-dinner 5 to 7, very, kind of a happy hour thing where it gives them just enough food and just enough drink where they're relaxed, but they're still hungry and they can stay for dinner. And then this is a fun idea I had to promote Argentinian wine. It's just to have a tango instructor. Every city has like a dance company or a ballroom dancing company where you can call and ask for a tango instructor or a couple to come to your restaurant and tango in the bar for happy hour. And you can play tango music and then give people a taste of Trevento. And it's a way that you can add some fun to your everyday. Now, last but not least, you want to show guests that you care about wine. So you want to use nicer wine glasses, but it's not necessary that you carry. There are wine glasses that are designated for red wine, and they're a little bit larger in the bulb or the glass of the wine. And then white wines are a little bit smaller glasses, but you don't have to have that. If you're not selling, wine as your primary beverage, you definitely don't need that. But definitely don't serve wine in a glass that's not a wine glass. You definitely want to serve, even if it's a stemless. And a stemless is a fine idea because it's there's so much less breakage. So you can certainly do a stemless wine glass, but make sure it's a wine glass. Take care of your wines so they're fresh. We've already talked about that. Have bottles of wine that you carry displayed on the back bar. So just like you would put the beers lined up, I see that a lot of times on the back bar, so you can see what beers you serve. Do the same thing with your bottles of wine so that they can see this is what I sell because visually it's very important. And you can ask your distributors for dummy bottles, empty bottles that you can display around the restaurant. Visuals are very important. So if you had a dummy bottle of wine, of whatever wine you're carrying, if you had one that you could display on every table, so it's empty, you don't have to worry about somebody taking off with it, but it's a visual that shows people we sell wine here. That's a huge suggestive selling suggestion. And then make sure your staff knows how to speak to wine and also how to open it properly at the table. We talked about that, but making sure your staff knows how to speak to wine is much more simple than it seems. So for some reason, we have this mystique around wine where we really think that it's complicated for some reason. We make it more complicated than we should. It's fermented grape juice, basically. And so you want to talk to your servers about wine and make sure that they know how to offer the wine, but make sure they understand that it's a condiment. It's basically just like offering ketchup with French fries or salsa with chips. It's something that complements your food and it makes it taste better. When you take a sip of the wine, it should make you want more food. When you take a bite of the food, it should make you want more wine. It marries and makes all the flavors become more enhanced. We as a company have wines at every price point. So Frontera is our house wine, and it is the number 2 most popular selling wine in the country and in the US, imported wine. $4 for a 750, and then we also have 1.5s and 187s. We also have some wonderful wines, Casillero del Diablo and Trevento Reserve, that are between $6 and $8 your cost. Amazing. And then we go up higher tiers with some Connoisseur, which is an organic wine line from Chile, as well as Conciottoro Gran Reserva. We have a new wine called Unrated Cabernet that's really hot on the market right now, and you can see the price point of those. And then we go 12 plus and above. We've got wines at every price point. Here are some reasons we believe guests will enjoy South American wines. And we talked a lot about wines in general. And look, I truly believe that Italian restaurants have a responsibility to offer some Italian wines because it's something that is inherent to that cuisine and it complements the cuisine. It was designed for that cuisine. Japanese restaurants should offer some type of sake because it was designed to complement that cuisine. So for Mexican restaurants, South American restaurants, Latin restaurants, I feel that you have some responsibility to offer some sort of wine that complements that cuisine, be it South American or Mexican wine. There are Mexican wines, but Ed and I were talking pre to this call. It's harder and harder to get them from Mexico. If you're able to, great. But South American is a great option because it's wines again that were created for this specific cuisine, but they're very affordable. So here's some reasons why. First of all, the outstanding quality. We know that Chilean wines and Chilean as well as Argentinian wines, um, they've been known for a long, long time, for many decades actually, for over delivering on quality. And then there's some world-class reds. There's some of the top wines in the world come from South America and come from Chile. Then also because of the climate in South America, because of the Andes Mountains and because of the ocean that surrounds this long continent, there are some beautiful cool climate whites. So Sauvignon Blanc, Chilean Sauvignon Blanc or South American Sauvignon Blanc is outstanding for the price. And then also there's some really unique varietals. So, we've got Malbec coming from Argentina. We also have Carmenere, which is another grape that comes originally from France, is a blending grape, but does extremely well in pairing with our cuisines, with your cuisines. So here's some added things that I wanted to share with you. But before I do that, I'm going to stop and ask Ed if there's any questions or if anybody on the line would like to say anything.
Thank you, Tammy. We don't have any questions from the audience, but let me remind you attendees that you've got an expert on this webinar. So fire away with questions while you've got the chance to talk to her. But Tammy, I do have two quick questions I would like to pose to you before we go into the appendix. One is, I know that the temperature of the wine is something that wine specialists talk about, and that can be a little bit intimidating, I think. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, is the counter behind the bar good enough for red wine, and is the refrigerator good enough for white wine, or do people need to pay more attention to that?
Well, that's a great question. So, yes, the counter in most places, and unless there's a window by the bar, keep in mind if something is if there's windows and you're getting sunlight that's coming through the bar, quite a bit of sunlight, you don't want the wines exposed to a lot of sunlight sitting on the bar top because that's not going to be helpful. Your whites you definitely want to keep in the refrigerator. When I say display on back bar, I'm talking about one bottle just so somebody can see what you serve. But the actual wine that you serve in white wine needs to be kept in the refrigerator, so kept cold. In the US, we typically serve our reds too warm. It doesn't hurt to have a little chill on a red wine. So, for instance, you want to make sure that your restaurant's cool enough and that they're not anywhere near sunlight or in the window. You wouldn't want to ever display wines in a window of a restaurant. And you can certainly take a little chill off of them. It doesn't hurt to put your red wines in the refrigerator, but some people even want that. I even ask sometimes for them to bring me an ice cube for my red wine, depending, on how warm it is. So I think we think that red wines should not be chilled and whites have to be chilled. It's kind of whatever your preference is, but yes, you definitely want to keep things cooler than warmer.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
And another question, you had mentioned the idea of having staff be certified as an incentive for them, and I love that idea. And you mentioned the cost of that, but is it like a class that you take, or an online thing, or how does one become certified?
Yeah, so there's many different ways that you can become certified. There's many different certifications out there, and your distributors will be able to help you find those. But basically, there's the Court of Master Sommeliers. That's one certification within the U.S. that we have. There's also Certified Wine Educator, the CWE. So there's like 4 or 5 different certifications that you can get. In addition to that, a lot of large markets have wine classes, local classes, either at their college or some sort of online class that they can take. So there's many different types of certifications, but I guess the most one that I'm most familiar with would either be the Court of Master Sommeliers, so the CSW as we call it, or the Certified Wine Educator, the CWE.
And if a staff member wanted to learn or get that certification, let's say that last one you mentioned, is it is it something intimidating? Do they need to take years of training, or is it a class and they just take a test?
Yeah, no, it's achievable, right? They'll definitely want to study and get in a group, but I'm talking about a server who's very interested, and it's something that would entice them. It's definitely achievable. And the way these certifications are set up, most of them, is there's an intro certification that certifies you as level 1, and that's very achievable. And then there are other levels beyond that. And when it gets higher, 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 some of the levels are, you have to identify wines by varietal through blind tasting. These are very different, higher level expertise. But that level 1 intro certification that you can put on your resume and have forever is very achievable by most people.
That's good to know. That's cool. It's a great idea.
Mhm.
Tammy, we do have a question from one of the attendees. And the question is, are wine cellars a good investment, or are they old fashioned for today's market?
Wine cellars are good. Okay. So we're talking about within a restaurant.
Right. I'll read the question again. There's another version of it. Are wine cellars a good investment for a new, modern, upscale Latin restaurant, or are they old fashioned?
Oh, okay. Um, I think they are a good investment if it's viewable to the guest. So if it's something that's more of a display piece, you don't need a cellar to keep your wine. You could keep it in like a pantry, a shelf. But if it's a glassed in place that people are seeing the wines displayed, I think that's very helpful to you and would be a great investment actually because of the visual. So I'd encourage you to do that.
Great. Thank you. That's
You're
it for
welcome.
questions. We do have time, Tammy. Attendees, again, if you've got questions, now is your chance. Don't miss this opportunity. But Tammy, if you'd like to touch on the items in your appendix, please do.
Okay, wonderful. So a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about is Frontera, our number 1 selling first tier house wine, is an incredible a line of wines, and we have many varietals within it, not just Chard and Cab. We have the Cabernet Merlot. We also have a Pinot. We have a Malbec. We have a red blend. We have a Sauvignon Blanc. We have a Pinot Grigio, a Rosé, and it's the top selling Chilean wine brand in the U.S. And the number 1 red blend in the U.S. We're also the official wine of the Latin Grammys. So we, have Latin Grammy giveaways. If that's something you'd like to discuss within your account in featuring Frontera, be happy to discuss it with you. As I spoke to you before, Sauvignon Blanc is definitely on the rise, and Frontera Sauvignon Blanc is doing incredibly well. So we have it available in the 1.5s to 750s, as well as these bag in the boxes that are beautiful and a great way to store your wine as well. Then we have this beautiful line of wines coming from Conchitoro called Grand Reserva. And the newest wine varietal within this is the Sauvignon Blanc. Again, Sauvignon Blanc is really the top growing, fastest growing varietal in the world right now. 100% Sauvignon Blanc. It sees 7 months of stainless steel, and it's just incredibly beautiful. About a $10 national average, and very much an upsell or a higher end wine for your list. And this wine, all of our wines give back in some way, and this wine helps protect the watersheds around the rivers and water in Chile, and protects these geese that live there as well. So It's a beautiful way to give back as well as a wonderful wine to carry. Then our number one priority South American brand and our number one selling brand within the premium tier is the Casillero del Diablo. We were New World Winery of the Year by New World by Wine Enthusiast magazine. And there's, like I said, stories sell wine, and there's an actual story to this. Casillero del Diablo was created by the name came from Don Melchor, our founder of Conciliatoro, had a private cellar and he had his best wines there. And he was trying to discourage his staff and people in his village from getting into his cellar. So he started a rumor that there was a devil that lived in his cellar. And still to this day, that is the legend and the reason why we have the brand Casillero del Diablo, the devil's cellar. If you go to our winery in Chile, you can actually see this visual of the devil in the cellar. And then you can see some of the varietals that we carry, but there's many more than these, and how highly rated. All of our wines are 90+ point rated within all the different wine publications. Our global brand ambassador for Casillero del Diablo is Pedro Pascal. You may know him as the Mandalorian. So we work with him to promote this brand via TV commercials. We also have partnerships with Hell's Kitchen. We do a lot with tacos. We do a lot with Day of the Dead, Halloween with this brand because of the devil cellar reference. And it's just a beautiful line of wines. About $6.50 national average is the price. And then this just shows the different ways that we really are promoting the wine. It's the number 2 most powerful wine brand in the world, according to Wine Intelligence. As you can see, there's quite a few varietals within this lineup. Beautiful lineup, and these wines pair very, very well with Latin, South American, and Mexican cuisine. We have some on-premise point of sale, and these are usually available through our distributors, but you can contact me as well. And these are things that we can provide a restaurant either for display pieces or wine keys to help, or something to give as an incentive. And then Trevento is a line of wines from Argentina, beautiful. And Trevento stands for 3 winds. It's the Polar, the Zonda, and the Sudestada that come together and create this incredible microclimate for these Malbecs. We have 2 different Malbecs within Trevento. This is the Reserve Malbec. It is national average between $7 and $8. And as you can see, it's just so highly awarded and a beautiful wine. You'll find that it appeals to both Malbec drinkers and people that don't even prefer Malbec. I was recently at dinner with a couple, and my customer said that he loves Malbec, but his wife does not. And they both drank a whole bottle of this and said they loved it. So it's a great wide appeal wine. And then we have one step up, a huge step up though. It's about $15 national average, but this is an amazing wine. And if you wanted to serve a higher end wine, this would be the one. It's 12 months in oak. It comes from 80-year-old vines. The Trevento Golden Reserve Malbec is highly awarded, smooth, silky, just amazing, amazing juice for the price. And as you can see, we are also, it's from the Luján de Cuyo, the birthplace of Argentine Malbec. As I mentioned, 80-year-old vines. It's outstanding quality, and just does extremely well. And this is our new label that just came out with the gold on a label to help communicate Golden Reserve. We also have some point of sale available at restaurants for this as well. And so these decanters are available to you. Decanters are something we use for higher end wines, just to allow them to breathe. That once you open a bottle of wine and pour it into a decanter, you wouldn't do this for the lower end wines, but for anything $15 and above, It allows the wine just to kind of open up and adds complexity to it. And then how to sell South American wines. Here's some steps. You want to open the bottle and talk about the varietals. And then really, like I said, stories sell. So you want to tell the story. So with Casiero, you want to talk about the double cellar. With Trevento, you want to talk about the 80-year-old vines. Taste, and you'll see the quality of these wines. They really over deliver for the price. And the unique climate and soil in the South American regions of Chile and Argentina are really distinctive. And there's a couple of reasons. The Andes Mountains create these very unique climates, as well as there are over 500 active volcanoes in South America that create this really porous soil that really strains the grapes and creates the complexity. And then last but not least, you want to offer training to staff and talk to them about the resources available. This is one of the ways in which we can help you. If you really want to get into wine and say you're selling, like the Latin restaurant mentioned and asked the question about the wine cellar, sounds like this might appeal to you. We have really great brand ambassadors that travel and do wine dinners for us. So this is a wine dinner that sold out, 65 guests. And after the dinner, they sold over $11,000 from additional cases of wine that were pre-sold to their guests to be delivered, I think in a week or two after that. So they came back to the restaurant to pick up their wine that they ordered. So we are really locked and loaded. We know how to do these and give you all the resources. You don't really have to, it's kind of a one-stop shop for wine dinners if that's something you'd like to venture into. And then that's pretty much it. I just wanted to thank you again for joining me today, and hopefully you took something away that you can use. But I put my information up there. Ed, I'm fine with anybody that's on this call reaching out to me personally and asking me any questions they have, or having me connect them in any way to their local market distributors or suppliers like myself that can help them.
Great. Thank you, Tammy. We do have one more question that came in right at the end.
Okay.
It is, do you have any insights into the consumption of your wines in Central America? What percentage of consumption is red and white?
In Central America, what consumption of red is white to my wines? I do have insight into that. The majority of my wines that are consumed are red. So it's about 60-40.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, attendees, for your attention today. Tammy offered us so much great information. And like I said, this event was recorded, so you'll be able to find it online. Also, we will write an article about some of these tips because they were so valuable. I don't want them to just live in a video there. Also, there are other articles on elrestaurante.com on selling wine. So please use that as a resource. And let me remind you that Tammy will be presenting again on July 12th and September 13th. And you can register for either of those events now and then get reminders as it gets closer. So let me thank Fetzer for their support of this series. And let me especially thank Tammy for your expertise and your time today. I personally learned a great deal, and I know our attendees did also. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Happy to do that. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
That ends our event today, everyone. Thank you.